This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris. It's wintertime here. Let's see what we can do with those fruits and vegetables we find at the farmer's market. Welcome to the Farmer's Market Gourmet.
Panade is a great farmer's market find. It uses leftover bread, onions, and then any kind of vegetable that you can find. All you need to do is either saute the vegetable or parboil it, and it cooks in a wonderful broth. It's just fantastic. So to start, I have taken 3 onions, and I'm going to go ahead and really thinly slice them. And because we're going to be caramelizing these onions, we want to have them cut fairly thin. That way they'll brown really nicely. Now I've taken a large pan, I have it on medium-high heat, and I'm going to go ahead and put in 2 tablespoons of butter and then about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So now that our butter is melted and foaming, I'm going to go ahead and take our onions and I'm going to put them right in the pan. Now I'm going to stir these up just so that they can get coated with the butter and the olive oil. And then I'm going to take and put the lid on and set the timer for about 13 minutes. And what's going to happen is these onions are going to start to get really nice and soft. One of the other great things about panade is that it uses leftover bread. So what I have here is half a sourdough bread, and what I'm going to do is just cut it up and get about 10 slices out of it. So now that the bread is nicely sliced, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to tear it up into some bite-sized bits like this. So I'm going to take my torn bread, I'm going to put this on a rimmed baking sheet, and I'm going to pop this into a preheated 350 degree oven, and I'm going to let this dry out. It takes about 5 minutes. Now I'm going to go ahead, since I'm standing here at the stove, and I'm going to go ahead and give my onions a little bit of a stir, and then go ahead and put the lid back on them and let them continue to cook. Now with the panade, we always have a layer of bread and a layer of onions. You can also have other types of vegetables that you find at the farmer's market that you've parboiled, but then you always want to have a layer of cheese. So what I'm going to use is about 1/2 cup of grated Gruyere cheese and then another 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. I'm going to put them together in this little bowl, and I'm just going to mix this up with my hands just so that every little handful has both types of cheeses in it. Now these onions have been cooking for about 10 minutes, and you can see they're starting to brown and get caramelized, which is what I want to have happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and stir this up, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on and let them cook for their last few minutes. Now my bread has started to dry out in the oven. It's been in there for about 5 minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it on this sheet to continue to dry out while the onions finish cooking. It's been about 13 minutes, and you can see I have a lot of nice brown bits on the bottom of the pan. So I'm going to take about 1/4 cup of dry white wine, and I'm going to use that to deglaze the pan. So I'm going to use my wooden spoon and just pick up all of those nice brown bits and mix them into the onions. And now I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, and I'm going to mix that around a little bit. And then I do like to add some fresh herbs. So I have about 3 or 4 sprigs of fresh thyme. I'm just going to go ahead and strip the leaves off of that. And I'm going to put in a little bit of kosher salt and a little bit of fresh ground pepper. And then I want to mix that together real good. Now these onions are nicely caramelized, so we're ready to go ahead and put our panade together. Our panade is going to cook in a 1.5 quart baking dish. Now I haven't buttered this or anything, we don't need to do that. So we're going to start layering our ingredients. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 1/3 of the bread and I'm going to make a layer of bread in the bottom of my pan. And then I'm going to take half of my onions and I'm going to sprinkle those on top. Now, if I had some other vegetables, maybe some sauteed squash or some parboiled greens, I could go ahead and layer that on top of the onions. And then I'm going to take half of my cheese and I'm going to sprinkle that on top. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some more bread. Some more onions, and some more cheese. And then I'm going to put the rest of my bread and the rest of my cheese right on top. Now we can't just put this in the oven because there's no liquid. So what I have is 4 cups of chicken broth. Now you could also use a vegetable broth if you'd like. And I'm going to go ahead and pour this in, and you'll notice I'm pouring it on the side here, not in the center, because I don't want to disrupt my layers. And this takes between 3 and 4 cups of broth. Now the way you know you have enough broth is when you start to see it peeking over the top of your bread. You can see here I'm starting to see the broth peeking up over my bread. That's just perfect. Now I'm going to take my baking sheet that I had browned my bread on, and I'm going ahead and put a piece of foil on top. And then I'm going to take my casserole, put that right in the center. That's just in case any of the broth bubbles over. I don't want it to land inside my oven. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the lid and place that right on top. So this is going to go into our preheated 350-degree oven for about 45 minutes with the lid on. Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes. And now I need to take the lid off of the panade. It's been bubbling away, and I'm going to put this back in the oven to cook for just 20 more minutes. So you can see it's just come out of the oven. The cheese is nicely melted. The bread is nicely browned. We've got some nice bubbling from the broth. Let's go ahead and serve this up. Well, if you'd like to try this panade, just go to our website and visit the Farmers Market show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. I'll see you next time.